It's such a pleasure to be part of this, I would say, uh, consortium of co-hosts. We had a wonderful G-Stick Delhi a few weeks back in India, in Delhi. And it's my pleasure to share with you the sort of look back and what happened and what were the key things that were sort of proposed out of various sessions that we had actually conducted. So if I may have the slide, maybe the next one. So just before this, yeah, thank you. So the journey of D-Stick, as you might know, started back in 2017 in Brussels, in Belgium, and Vito took the lead. But along with Vito, the sort of 10 co-hosts from across various countries, including China, India, Morocco, UAE, and many others, actually had collaborated to curate various thematic discussions and initiatives engaging with the various key stakeholders of across the world, including the governments and the private sector. And this journey has grown over a period of time. With last few, the last event that we had was in UAE, in Dubai. Before that, we had in Rio de Janeiro, and the last one was in Delhi. Next slide, please. So Delhi, next slide. In Delhi, we actually focused on basically with the theme harmonizing technology, policy, business pathways for sustainable future and coexistence. And we focused on several themes, as you can see, on energy, climate, health, biodiversity, innovation, on IT, education, etc. And these were events that really were participated by several head of the state from various ministries within the country, as well as participants, key speakers from across the world, including more than 12 countries from around the world. And we had brilliant of the minds come over and debate and discuss on these subjects on the perspective of, as I said, technology policy and business pathways towards sustainable future and coexistence. Next slide, please. So we had 2 days of deliberations, around 16 sessions, in which we had 6 plenaries and several deep dives on those subjects, as I mentioned. And in the G-Stick Delhi, we really looked into how, knowing that the global warming and the necessity of action is already in a way we are lagging behind. So the idea was to look into how we can enhance the perspective of technology, policy, and business solutions to a much wider scale. What are the kind of cross-learning and knowledge exchange that we can bring in through various participation from various stakeholders across the world. And I think in that dimension, we had a range of discussions and perspectives, debated and brought forward in the discussions in the different sessions. So next slide, please. We can skip this slide. It was just to enhance and just to emphasize wide scale participation. I'd like to share the key outcomes from the sessions. Maybe next slide, please. Next, please. So I can't see. Maybe I'll just open. So amongst various discussions that we had, one of the, in the inaugural session, it was very, well participated. I think the participation was more than, around 270 people. In the inaugural, we had Minister from, Ministry of Petroleum and Renewable, Honorable Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, and he really emphasized on various perspectives of initiatives that the country has taken, especially the journey that the country took in basically moving towards biofuel. And India's initiatives, from 2006 to 2025, India has promised to, enhance its blending of ethanol as biofuel by around 20%. And the minister really emphasized that, and the fact that that India wants to move towards, greener fuels. And this was very well taken. In fact, the perspectives of not only biofuels but also green hydrogen, and how our petroleum industries are basically from being encouraged to basically look into those green energy transition and energy demand growth. So this was really a very high level packed inaugural session in which perspectives from various including the minister, various participants were put forth. We then had the plenary session on the Paris Agreement, 2030 Agenda and Health, where largely the debates basically converged into how we need to integrate health consideration into the climate change policies, focusing on the vulnerable populations through international cooperation. Various debates happened, and I think this was brought out as a clear outcome from the plenary on 2030 Agenda and Health. And Fiocruz was key, into taking this session forward. We had a plenary on water. The topic was water as a driver of multi-sectoral sustainability and economic development. And I think we all agree that water is central to climate change, and a lot of impact that we foresee through floods, droughts, impact on availability, the changes in the water cycle, pollution. All of these are very well known, and any change that we want to take up had to have to be integrated towards action towards initiatives on water. And I think we actually highlighted that fact that we need to have more water efficient technologies in agriculture. Agriculture in our part of the world is, as highest water consuming entity. So agriculture and industry, we need to have more water efficient technologies and best practices to reduce the consumption, and not only of water but also the linked energy, and also to enhance the water security and the economic growth. Those perspectives needs to be brought forward. And I think the highlight that I would want to kind of bring forth is that the debate happened that while the technologies are there, how do we upscale them? How do we make them accessible and equitable in terms of making it to reach the mass scale, given the challenges of the cost and the accessibility at a vulnerable end chain. So I think these were the topics that were very well debated, and I think re-emphasized that we need to make these accessible through market mechanisms. We then had a discussion on green hydrogen market creation mechanisms, basically to offtake agreements, reduce production cost, and foster government support to build a green hydrogen market. I think that was something that came out as a very highlighted recommendation. We had a session on health, equity, and climate change, and the entirety of these discussions actually converged into the fact that the health inequities which are exacerbated by the climate change need to be basically targeted, need to be addressed through targeted intervention and equitable climate education. And that was a session that basically looked into the perspectives on that. We had a session on implementation of climate action through the lens of different stakeholders in two parts. And the first one, the discussion basically converged around how to integrate the diverse stakeholders into climate action and strategies which invest into resilient infrastructure for a long-term impact. We also had a very interesting session on digitalization, and there was a debate on AI in or versus education. Many of us would be already struggling with our students, who use AI and, chat GPT on looking for various answers. So the debate was, on how the future strategies on innovation policy for education needs to look into the responsible AI adoption in education, ensuring inclusivity, but also ethical use of the technology. We also had a session on social technology to promote health equity and climate adaptation, wherein we focused on leveraging community-driven data-based solutions to enhance health resilience in the face of climate change. We then had a session on water sustainability, well attended by the ministry secretary and additional secretary, basically on leapfrogging water reuse and improved efficiency, wherein we debated the fact that while treatment is very necessary to abate pollution, but the time is now to basically look into a future where we are not just treating the water to avoid pollution, but also move towards recycle, reuse, and resources recovery, because that's the future. As the population and the demand grows on the resources, we will need to adopt this, much faster. So that session basically argued about that and the possible technologies to promote innovation and the innovative solution in the dimension of sustainable water management. We had an energy session then, the role of energy mix planning and power grids to achieve net zero, wherein we looked into the investment to grid modernization to integrate renewable energy sources. Likewise, we had session on agriculture and food sustainability, digital technologies to achieve the SDGs, highlighting to bridge the digital divide. Then on green hydrogen, common infrastructure readiness and global supply chain integration. We had education, technology and innovation session, basically focusing on the quality of teaching and the balanced technological advancement with inclusive educational practices. We also looked into the biodiversity and uniting for nature, basically supporting nature-based solutions, ensuring fair distribution and benefits from biodiversity. Likewise, we had the water, energy, food, and ecosystem nexus being discussed in a session, basically towards common ground to strengthen water security, and as well implementation of climate action further. And in the closing session, we really summarized all these sessions and looked into the real-world testing of technology and strengthening the partnership. So that's a very brief summary, although a bit elongated, but I just wanted to share with you some of these key outcomes from some of the brilliant minds that debated and discussed. Maybe the next slide, please. So these are some of those pictures from the conference. We missed you, some of you, at the event, but it was really well appreciated. Next one, we'd like to thank our partners, sponsors and co-hosts. As you can see on the board, the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Fiocruz, ABIS, Matri, Synergist, as well as, of course, all the co-hosts from Belgium, of course, Vito, Brazil, China, India, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, South Korea, and the UAE. Right, thank you. The last slide, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anshuman, for sharing these beautiful insights and really grasping the fact that GSA goes very broad, but really very deep into the issue. So we tackle a lot of different sectors, different challenges, but always with the technology and innovation framework, and really looking at how we can scale them. And as you said in the beginning, we really have to look at that scale and look at how we can implement on a broad level, engaging everybody, leaving no one behind as key messages. But thank you very much. We can also share the slides, of course, with the outcomes as we are a bit time bound. I would love to go now to our panel and discuss a bit of these topics that we have already touched upon. I would like to begin with a question for Mr. Neto from Fiocruz. As we all know, climate change is affecting biodiversity, food security, creating water scarcity, and steering us towards a potential next health emergency. And these looming global health crises need to be addressed, making inclusive preparedness, resilience, and responsive plans, really integrating it all. And if we underline inclusiveness, as also Dr. Anshuman has did, how can STI and Science, Technology and Innovation foster this inclusiveness and create a more prepared environment and perhaps mitigate certain health risks? over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, my name is Guilherme Franco Neto. I run the coordination of environmental health at Fiocruz, and I'm very happy to be here with you and just to invite you for the next COP in Belém, in the center of the Amazon jungle, and it will be quite a very important moment.
Absolutely.
Coming from this one. Fiocruz on November 1st, 2024, defined that climate change, sustainability, and equity, social equity, are the major core center of the institution from now on. There is no way to think about public health without dealing with climate change and how it brought impact on the humanity life and health. From WHO, from the other most important health centers from the world, we understand that health has very impact coming from climate change in a very broad spectrum of the illness and health consequences that we have to learn how to deal with that in the new era of climate change. Since COVID-19 pandemic, people understand that health has to be in the center of the overall agenda of the international community and also in the countries. And we are strongly working on that way, trying to deal with all our aspects from science, technology, and innovation and education that can bring us the possibility to work with the links between climate change and health. And this is very challenging because that means to change our minds, our culture, to understand how to deal with that. One point that is very important at Fiocruz is that we have to understand that this spectrum of impact comes differently in the population. The most vulnerable ones that has been already for centuries living in conditions that are not acceptable, they will suffer much more the impact from climate change process. This is already happening in Brazil. This year we had a very strong flood in the south of the country that create a tremendous impact, and from June to now we are having a very important drought around the country with several fires, with several injuries at the population, and we are leading with this as already a climate change moment, and we have to learn very much from that. And what is very important is that we are getting the feeling that even those people more vulnerable are the most that receive the most important impact from climate change. They are the ones who have the most important knowledge to how to deal with that. The people from the forest, the people from the field, the campesinos, the people from the waters, fishermen, they know very much how to deal with the nature, much more than us. And we have to include their knowledge in our process of thinking and to get the solutions how to deal with that. And this is very important in countries like Brazil, and I think worldwide, this is very important. So the major challenge that Fiocruz sees is that since the COP last year, how to put health inside and within this process. We have to learn how to deal with that. And this is something that Fiocruz wants to work together with the international health community to deal with this new moment of our lives and to the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neto. I think you touched upon a couple of very important points, that impact comes differently indeed to each population, that we have to include indigenous knowledge, that they know so much more than us, that they have to be involved in processes like this. I'm very happy to see how they have been included in COP16, and I hope it will be the same at this COP, and how we have to put health within the process of international talks is also, I think, for a lot of points difficult to get into the climate change dialogue, but it's also interconnected, as we are here at the SDG Pavilion. We know that, but it's super relevant. Thank you very much for your points. On that note, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Mantlana from CSIR. As you can see, it's very, all stakeholders have to be involved, but one very important one is if we want to have paradigm shifts that really are inclusive, that affect everybody in a positive way, we will need a strong public sector. We need agile governments that are willing to invest and to work with private sector, to work with different communities, to really listen to the needs of their countries and push for the topics internationally. So public sector can really be play a vital role in all these processes and leapfrog developments. And how do you see RTIs like yourself and like us play an important role in objectively supporting these governments so that they have the science to change what's needed? And can you maybe look at the case of South Africa, how you are implementing this? Thank you.
Thanks, Ilke, and good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Mantlana. I'm from South Africa. I lead the work of climate change at the CSIR, which is the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. I have a team of about 42 researchers that I work with, and we try to answer different questions on climate change. But I'm part of a bigger institution. CSIR is made up of more than 1,200 researchers and engineers. Coming to your question, Ilke, on the significance of the public sector, I want to start with the obvious. Context. The issue of context when you talk about science and technology is very important. By context here, I'm referring to the fact that different countries are experiencing different contexts. The fact that Swaziland and Sweden start with S does not mean that they operate within the same context. So the conversation about the role of science and technology has to be located squarely and perfectly within the national context, such that it reflects opportunities and challenges for competitive advantage of that country. Secondly, linked to the first issue of context is the issue of institutional capacity. Mm-hmm. The conversation of STIs and the role of science and technology is directly linked with how strong are the domestic institutional capacities. it's obvious that this conversation about the significance of technology and science will be dominated by those countries whose institutional capacities are strong. And therein lies the risk of this conversation. And we don't talk about this enough, that science and technology can be a channel of perpetuating inequalities domestically within a country and internationally across the globe. And that conversation we need to have explicitly of how to prevent, beyond the rhetoric of leaving no one behind, but practically, how does science and technology prevent or reduce perpetuation of inequality within countries and across countries? Now, coming to your question of the role of government. In South Africa, we are lucky so far. I must say up front, we are one of the most unequal societies in South Africa. We are aware of it. As such, we always have this deliberate, intentional, explicit effort of reducing the gap between the have and the have-nots through technology. But the context is this. South Africa's fiscal capacity is declining. The investment in science and technology, if you look at it over the period of 10 years, is declining. And yet the need for STIs to inform policy is increasing. And that's the challenge we are facing. But despite all of those challenges, South Africa is trying. We have examples of science and technology issues that are making huge inroads nationally and internationally. One of them is the hydrogen roadmap that we've recently developed. One of them is the Circular Economy Development Fund that our Science and Technology Department has just initiated. This fund aims to unlock barriers, to remove barriers for small entrepreneurs to enter the circular economy markets. And it's run by the department with the CSIR, with us. So there are several initiatives. We have a very active Department of Science and Technology when it comes to biorefinery, like I said, circular economy, hydrogen economy. But I want to conclude with this. South Africa is relatively unique with these experiences. The picture is slightly different across Africa. I'm aware that to many people that don't live in Africa, especially those that are in the north of Africa and on the west of Africa, Africa is a country to them. So they lose the understanding of the peculiar circumstances that predominate within each country. That's important to me because driving science and technology reflects institutional capacity strength, reflects constraints and opportunities that exist within a country. And government has a role of, using your word, Ilke, of leapfrogging these challenges. And yet circumstances are pretty difficult to do this leapfrogging. I want to close with the SDG 17. To me, that's where partnerships come in. And GSTIC, I see GSTIC as playing a big role in enabling governments to partner with each other in driving science and technology to improve evidence base for informing policy that helps sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for your answer. It's super interesting, and we can have a whole discussion about that as well, how capacity constraints make equality even bigger. Definitely power constraints that also come into the mix. Super interesting points, and thank you for sharing, and also sharing how in South Africa you still have those very relevant initiatives and how you're stepping up that way. And also very good point to make that each situation is different, each country has different constraints, each community has different needs. So very important to look at how local needs can be translated into international rules and guidelines to really make the link between the local necessities and the international level, because we really need to get those two on the same line. Thank you very much. I'll jump ahead to a question for Ms. Liu, working at GIAC. As you are more specialized into energy, this is a more energy sector focused question. So today's challenges are very multidimensional, but UAE framework, UAE consensus that was achieved last year at COP28, we collectively decided to triple renewable energy and double energy and efficiency, but billions still have not even access to reliable energy, suffer from energy security. So it's quite high goals, but still a long way to go for the basic necessities. And whole countries even lack decent infrastructure, also tapping into the differences between countries, and that we really have to look into the local level. So my question to you is, how do we take into account these social economical challenges as an STI, also looking at how do we in this difficult world look at a just transition, definitely on energy challenges, and how do we positively impact that that energy system? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, my name is Yiran. I am here on behalf of the Guangzhou Institute of Energy Conversion. We are a research institute that's focused on the research and also the application of new and renewable energy under the Chinese Academy of Sciences. So over the past years, we have certainly seen a very strong growth in the field of new energy, including major breakthroughs in terms of energy technology, as well as growth in the industrial market. But as you mentioned, there is of course still a plethora of socioeconomic challenges that we are facing. For example, a key concern is definitely energy security and energy access. As the largest developing country, we must balance carbon goals with the demand for stable energy supply, both for development and for the improving living standards of the people, and also as a large country with disparities in levels of development across regions, it is imperative that we take into consideration energy access, especially in areas that are less developed or remote areas. This calls not only for continuous research into improving the performance and reducing the cost of energy technologies, making them affordable and scalable for the market, but also calls for inclusive and forward-looking policy, strategic planning policy, and financial tools to guide the market. For example, under the Rural Revitalization Initiative, there was special emphasis placed on the improvement of energy and also of digital infrastructure in the rural areas of China, and also policies in place to ensure that the transition to clean energy such as solar, geothermal, wind, etc., does not further negatively burden the vulnerable population in the area. So, and also, of course, being with renewable energy being still an emerging industry, there are problems that comes with it in this certain stage of development. So this also is integrated with issues with the characteristics of renewable energy as it is relatively intermittent and has fluctuations which has to be paired with stable supplementary energy in order to be able to stably meet the energy demands of people and industries. So there is the issue of the utilization of the renewable energies, where while a lot of new energy is being produced, not so much of those are being successfully integrated into the grid and being effectively utilized, and also the industry and with the new energy industry switching between this stage of growth where everyone is coming into this into this field. There is the issue of production being concentrated in certain parts of the supply chain, and usually in the lower part, and sometimes without the adoption of advanced and effective energy technologies. So this is also something that policy and financial tools may need to help guide the investments and development of the industry into high quality and sustainable development.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Liu. Also, coming back to indeed having strong policies to create that inclusive framework and to make sure that the newest and efficient tools are being used in the right industries. Very important to have strong governments and to have a strong private sector looking at a green energy transition. We are almost running out of time and the next group is here, so I'm going to ask a question to Dr. Anshuman to shortly answer, and then I have a collective question for you all. But Dr. Anshuman, as you said, we discuss a lot of topics here, a lot of different challenges, but we have all one main challenge, of course a lot, but also one that is very present at this COP, and that's the big finance gap, of course. And I would like to hear your views on which sources of capital, such as public finance, grants, concessional loans, private equity, can really speed up the process to scale indeed STI realizations that benefits the climate, and how you are looking at multilateral and national governments and funds to play a role in this.
Thank you. I think, as you already mentioned, all of these financial tools are needed very much. And I think what is more important is that these are needed to be scaled up and made available fairly quickly, because that's the delay we are facing since many COPs. In fact, India has very much emphasized the fact that we need $1 trillion investment, to basically facilitate climate action and to unlock the private sector initiatives or interventions on mitigation and adaptation. Now, there are various ways to do that. While I'm not a financial expert, but then the discussion on the financial tools is very much in the outing, and one needs to look into all those models. So, for example, if I take 2-3 sectors, let's say to start with the government itself, that there are financing mechanisms available nationally, national funds, national adaptation funds, green funds, the risk mitigation availability, for example, the insurance related funds. And also the fact that these funds basically are made available with increased investment, I think for the resilient infrastructure is very much a very important point. And now, as far as the corporate is concerned, I think beyond the pool of money that they are able to generate, I think we need to look into how, for example, recent ESG initiatives. That's a very good tool. If we can focus more on investment, it will indirectly help into the climate cause. And a lot of these venture capitals and initiatives on those lines. One very important point is that the technology used for funding is quite very important to talk about. And I think technology can work two ways. One is, of course, technology as an enabler for increasing efficiency, reducing pollution, and the reduction in, therefore, CO2 emission. Through a range of technologies, paucity of time, I'm not going to detail, but those are available, and their innovations will keep happening. But we can also use the technology now, given that we have AI and tools like these, how we can further polish the information generation itself and make it much more a tool which can further enhance the data generation and the confidence on the data, but also on decision making for finance priority. We did a project a while ago in which we looked into the scenario planning approach of what are the interventions which are identified for adaptation for climate change. But then not all of those which were all good and giving the benefits were possibly to be invested into, because in different points in time, the cost benefit was varying. And only some of these interventions did make a sense. So the investment tools need to be using these information, and with the AI, it will become much more possibly accurate and maybe more transparent. So we need to look into how we can basically use these technology into climate financing tool as well, and how we can better use them for a better decision making as well, besides the finance availability. And of course, the technology has to be a tool for better, I would say, equitable finance access, and as well as a tool where the use of for example, mobiles for fund access and for disbursement and associated kind of activities need to be looked into. So I think a blend of all these, from the government side, from the corporate, from the common man, in which the access to technology in facilitating fund access, as well as increase in the fund, or let's say investment into the sector, I think is needed very much in current time.
Thank you very much. You wrapped up lovely yourself. I couldn't say it better. So super interesting points as well to make, that technology needs to be the enabler for access, definitely. So I'm very sorry, but we do have to wrap up. I do have maybe just one thing, just one answer from you all very shortly, like in 1 second. What would be the main topic you would like to discuss next year on the GSEC conference and maybe on COP30? But keep it short, 5 seconds each. We can start. Yes. Mr. Neto, go ahead.
Thank you. The inequity in the world is quite a very important issue. We have to think how to deal with that related to climate change and sustainability agenda. Free Cruise wants to offer its best knowledge, technology, and also will to work with you in this way. I believe we have an opportunity, and we should work on that, linking these major issues with the right of people to live. And this, to me, is the most important thing that we can do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Leo.
Thank you. I think, well, definitely there needs to be continued conversations on the technologies and implementation of energy transition, as well as addressing new problems that comes with new energy development, like, for example, the recycling of retired new and renewable energy devices, etc. And also I think there, of course, needs to be continued discussion and promotion of collaboration between different stakeholders, both domestically and internationally.
Perfect. Thank you very
you.
much. Mr. Mantlana?
Nexus issues for the water, energy, food nexus is a critical conversation, in particular for sub-Saharan Africa. It may be less relevant for Europe, for North America, for Japan, but it's a real critical issue for us in the South, in the global South.
Thank you. Absolutely. And then Dr. Einschmann?
A very focused response. Democratizing technology and best practices for a better climate resilient future.
What lovely words to wrap up with. Thank you so much. Maybe we can go to the last slides, if possible. We have just one to announce. Go ahead. Yes. No, one more to announce our next GSTIC that will take place next year in October, the beginning of October in Pretoria, co-hosted by CSIR. So very welcome to attend, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your lovely insights. I hope to chat further during this conference, and I wish you a very fruitful next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Elke, for wonderfully moderating this. Thank you.